What happens when the world's largest economy decides to tax nearly every country on the planet? Markets plunge, leaders panic, and over 50 nations scramble to Washington, desperate to cut a deal. This isn't a scene from a movie, it's happening right now. President Donald Trump has just set off a global tariff storm, and countries are either retaliating or rushing to the negotiation table. So, what's Trump's game plan? And who is winning or losing in this high stakes trade chessboard? Let's break it down.
China, first row. China.
US President Donald Trump's decision to impose sweeping tariffs has stunned global markets. On Saturday, a baseline tariff of 10% on all imports came into effect. But that's just the start. For many countries, the tariffs go much higher, from 26% on Indian goods to 54% on Chinese imports, 50% on Lesotho's exports, and even 46% on Vietnam. These numbers are more than economic penalties, they are a global wake up call. On Monday, April 7, Trump compared these tariffs to medicine. Speaking from Air Force One, he said, and I quote, "I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something." End quote. The statement rattled markets across Asia. Stocks plunged as investors braced for a drawn out trade crisis. According to White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, more than 50 countries have already reached out to negotiate, realizing they are the ones bearing the brunt of the tariffs.
India, very, very tough. Very, very tough. Prime Minister just left. He's a great friend of mine, but I said, "You're a friend of mine, but
India has found itself facing a 26% tariff on its exports to the US, and instead of retaliating, New Delhi is choosing diplomacy. Officials describe the tariffs as a mixed bag and say India will not strike back but will talk. The advantage: India already has a head start. Trade talks with the US have been ongoing since February. The aim is to finalize a deal by autumn 2025. India is also eyeing a clause in Trump's order that allows relief for countries that make significant steps to fix non reciprocal trade. That could work in India's favor. In fact, India has already shown goodwill. It's reduced tariffs on US luxury bikes and bourbon and removed a 6% tax on digital ads that affected American tech firms. Talks are on the table, and India is positioning itself as a corporate partner. Vietnam and China, two of Asia's biggest exporters, have taken completely different paths. Hit with a 46% tariff, Vietnam is appealing to Washington to delay its reciprocal tariffs, scheduled to kick in on April 9. In a meeting between Vietnam's deputy prime minister and the US ambassador, Hanoi even offered to slash its own tariffs on US imports to zero. Their approach is coordinated and urgent. Vietnam's special envoy is visiting both the US and Cuba from April 6 to 16, trying to reach a deal before damage is done. Beijing isn't backing down. After the US slapped a massive 54% tax on Chinese goods, China hit back with 34% retaliatory tariffs on American imports. This could escalate into another full blown trade war. Meanwhile, Taiwan is showing restraint. President Lai Ching-te has refused to impose counter-tariffs and instead proposed zero tariffs on both sides. Taiwan has also promised to boost US pound investments, signaling it wants friendship, not a fight. Indonesia too has chosen diplomacy. Facing 32% tariffs, its economic minister said Jakarta would send a delegation to the US to talk directly with the Trump administration. It's not just Asia. Across the world, governments are rushing to Washington with offers and olive branches. Israel is negotiating hard. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to meet Trump directly. Israel faces a 17% tariff that could hurt exports of medical equipment and machinery. In Europe, countries like Italy and Spain are urging the EU to avoid confrontation. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, though critical of the tariffs, has stressed diplomacy over a trade war. Zimbabwe, hit with 18% tariffs, has suspended duties on US goods in a bid to win goodwill. President Emerson says this could help grow both US imports and Zimbabwean exports. Lesotho, a small African nation facing 50% tariffs, is sending a delegation to the US to plead its case. At the same time, it's looking to diversify trade markets beyond the US. Trump's tariff policy is being described as reciprocal tariffs. essentially penalizing countries that the US believes have been enjoying unfair trade advantages. The move is part of a broader America First strategy aimed at correcting trade deficits and bringing manufacturing back to the US. But while the White House frames this as economic correction, critics warn it could ignite a global trade war, raise consumer prices, and strain diplomatic ties. What's clear for now is this: world leaders are taking Trump seriously, and in this new trade reality, those who negotiate fast might just escape the full brunt of his tariff hammer. Stay tuned as we keep tracking this high stakes economic standoff.